Okay, everybody. So we're going to look at the homework that I gave you over spring break. Okay, I'm related to whom? This is due after break. Okay, so this area right here, what is the name of your role today? Don't worry about that. All right, now, let's read through this together. We know that children look like their parents because of the genetic material they inherit. Okay, remember, what does inherit mean? Pass down from ancestors. No one would argue that traits are passed down from one generation to another. The genetic material is used as instructions to make proteins. We can compare the proteins that are made in different organisms to measure how closely organisms are related. So just again, genetic material. What genetic material are we talking about here? We're talking about DNA. And DNA makes protein. What are proteins made of? Amino acids. Okay, so just remember that the sequence of amino acids determines the protein. Okay, if we look down here, model 1, in other words, it's talking about this diagram right here. This diagram. We're looking at a comparison of the amino acids in the beta chain of the hemoglobin molecule in 8 selected species. So selected species just means they're selected. So we're talking about the amino acid chain of the hemoglobin molecule in 8 different species. So 8 different types of organisms. Okay? So let's read through here. Of the 106 amino acid positions, we know what positions means, out of the 106 amino acid positions in the beta hemoglobin molecule, only the 40 positions showing any differences between any of these 8 species are included in this table. So let's look at this again very carefully. How many amino acids make up a hemoglobin molecule? 106 amino acids make up hemoglobin. Out of the 106, there are only 40 positions showing any differences between any of these 8 species. So you have 8 different organisms, and there's only 40 differences out of 106. The other 105 positions do not vary across these 8 species. If they do not vary, that means they're the same. The key to the amino acid is shown below. You do not need to learn these for this exercise. So you don't need to know what these all mean. But here's the key. So if we look here, amino acid position 1, V, valine. So this species 1 has valine in its position 1. Species 2 has valine in position 1. Species 3 has valine in position 1. Species 4, species 5, species 6 all have valine in their position 1. Species 7 has threonine in position 1. And species 8 has valine in position 1. So all these species are related or have the same amino acid sequence except for this species here, species 7. Let's look at the next one. Amino acid position 2. H is amino acid histidine. Histidine, 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 histidine. Phenylalanine. Oh. And glutamine. So species 1 through 6 have histidine in amino acid position 2, but species 7 and 8 have different amino acids. Okay? Hopefully you're following this. If not, look at the video again from the beginning. And if you have any specific questions, shoot me an email about that. Let's continue on through this work. Okay. Now these questions you're going to have to answer. What kind of macromolecule, in other words, what kind of organic molecule is hemoglobin? Remember, the organic molecules are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Okay, this should be easy. You should be able to do that. Why are there 40 amino acid positions included on the table? We went over that. Study the chart in Model 1, which is what we just looked at, by comparing how many amino acid differences there are between species 1 and each of the other species. How many differences in the chart below? Okay, so you got to fill that out. How many differences between species 1 and 2? How many amino acid differences between 1 and 3? How many amino acids differences between 1 and 5? Okay. What species number appears to be the most related to species 1? Explain your answer. In other words, which amino acids are related? Which species number appears to be the least related to species 1? Explain your answer. Okay, so let's look at this. Here, the chart below identifies the species. Organism 1 is a human, organism 2 is a chimp, organism 3 is a gorilla, organism 4 is a gibbon, organism 5 is a rhesus monkey, organism 6 is a squirrel monkey, organism 7 is a ringtail lemur, organism 8 is a horse. Okay, so let's look at these questions. Are you surprised by your answers for 4 and 5? Write down what you think. What holds the instructions for the order of amino acids? What molecule holds the instructions for the order of amino acids? Order of amino acids. What do you get when you put a bunch of amino acids together? You get a protein. Thinking about yourself, what percentage of your DNA did you inherit from your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents? Think about that. Who are you most closely related to? Explain. Okay? Okay, now here's this table. Organism pair A and B, A and C, A and D, percent similarity of DNA. Which organisms are most closely related? Organism A and B have 97% similarity. Organisms A and C have 85% similarity. Organisms A and D have 50% similarity. So what's the answer to that question? Which organisms are least closely related? Which organisms most likely share a common ancestor? Common ancestor. People before you. Organisms before you. Common ancestor. Which one shares a common ancestor? Remember, your ancestors have similarities in your DNA. So A and B, 97%, A and C, 85%, A and D, 50%. Suppose another organism, we'll call it organism X, is discovered. How could scientists use information about its DNA sequence to compare its relationship to organism A, B, C, and D above? Okay, you map its DNA and compare with A through D to identify similarities. There's the answer for that question.